What if there was a war in heaven that God himself chose to erase from existence? A conflict so devastating that even the scriptures speak of it only in whispers. Most people know about Lucifer's rebellion, but few have heard of the one that came before. The war fought between angels of light, brothers who once stood side by side in perfect harmony. It was a battle that shook eternity and left heaven forever changed. Why would God hide such a story? What truth was too dangerous, too sacred for humanity to remember? Ancient writings, like the Book of Enoch, and fragments of forgotten scrolls hint at a celestial division that nearly unmade creation itself. The cost was too high, the memory too heavy for heaven to bear, and so God sealed it away. But traces remain, prophecies, visions, and echoes hidden between verses. When you begin to see them, a pattern emerges. Every struggle between light and darkness, every battle for power, every fall from grace mirrors that ancient conflict. It is the secret root of pride, the hidden scar of creation. In this journey, we will uncover what really happened in that forbidden war, why God erased it, and what its silence reveals about his mercy. The story is not just about angels, it's about us, about the choices we make, and the power of humility to restore what pride destroyed. Stay until the end, because once you understand why heaven chose to forget, you'll never read the Bible the same way again. Subscribe, activate the bell, and prepare your heart, because what was once erased is about to be remembered. In the beginning, there was harmony. The kingdom of heaven shone with flawless light, where every angel moved in perfect rhythm with the will of God. Each being of light had a purpose. Guardians, messengers, warriors of holiness, all united in praise. No jealousy, no rivalry, no shadow had ever entered that realm. The glory of the Creator filled every corner, and the name of God alone was exalted. But even in perfection, the seeds of tension began to stir, quietly and unseen. Among the countless hosts, not all shared the same closeness to the throne. Some were mighty, commanding legions across the heavens, while others were humble servants, carrying out tasks that seemed small. Over time, the difference between glory and obedience became a silent question in the hearts of many. Why were some exalted and others overlooked? It wasn't rebellion yet, only curiosity, but in heaven, even curiosity can become a storm. Scripture says in Job 38:7 that the morning stars sang together and all the sons of God shouted for joy. Those stars were angels, radiant beings rejoicing in creation, yet the same brilliance that illuminated them could also blind. To gaze upon divine light too long without humility is to forget where the light truly comes from. And so, deep within the celestial ranks, pride began to breathe, invisible as wind, but powerful enough to move the foundations of eternity. The archangels noticed the change. Michael, ever vigilant, felt the heavens tremble with a dissonant tone. Gabriel, the messenger of divine truth, tried to restore harmony with words of wisdom. But there were whispers now, subtle, persuasive voices asking if equality was truly the design of heaven. The perfect order that had once united the hosts now felt strained, like a harp slightly out of tune, where one wrong note could destroy an entire melody. And so the kingdom of heaven stood on the edge of something it had never known before: division. The light still shone, but it flickered with unease. The angels continued their praise, yet beneath their songs hid questions too dangerous to speak. The storm had not yet begun, but its wind was already moving through the golden halls. What would happen when those questions found their voice? It began with conversations that no one was meant to hear. In the endless expanse of heaven, small gatherings of angels met in secret. They didn't speak of war or hatred, only of balance, fairness, and the right to understand the mind of God. At first, their words seemed harmless, questions born from wonder, but behind them hid something older than curiosity, the desire for power. And in a place where every heart was once pure, even a single spark of pride could set the heavens aflame. These weren't the angels who followed Lucifer. Their discontent was quieter, more thoughtful, almost noble in appearance. They believed the Creator had given too much authority to certain archangels, especially Michael, whose leadership commanded all heavenly armies. Some whispered that perhaps each choir of angels should rule itself, free from one command. It sounded like order, but it was the beginning of separation. Heaven's unity was fracturing not through open defiance, but through ideas that felt righteous to those who believed them. Gabriel carried their concerns before the throne, hoping for mercy, but heaven had grown heavy with silence. God's response was not thunder or flame, it was patience. For in his wisdom, he allowed freedom, even to his angels, knowing that love without choice is not love at all. Yet that same freedom became a test. The angels who doubted mistook divine silence for permission, and what was once quiet questioning became a movement. The silent rebellion had begun. Soon, the harmony of heaven was replaced by unease. Choirs no longer sang in perfect unison. Some angels stood apart during praise, their eyes filled with hesitation. They spoke in half-truths, convincing others that they sought only understanding. But beneath their calm words lay pride too deep to confess. The most dangerous rebellion is not the one that shouts. It is the one that hides beneath the illusion of light. And so, while the rest of heaven slept in peace, a new power was gathering in the shadows of eternity. Legions began to form loyalties without knowing it. Leaders emerged, voices rose, and heaven's song began to split into two melodies, one of devotion and one of doubt. The silence that once protected them was about to break. The first sound of war was coming, not as thunder, but as a whisper. When the first cry echoed through the heavens, it wasn't a scream of rage, it was grief. What had begun as whispers turned into shouts, and soon legions stood face to face under a trembling sky. The angels who questioned God's order refused to bow before the archangels any longer. They claimed to fight for freedom, for equality, for the right to shape their own destiny. But behind those noble words was a wound no reason could heal. The wound of pride. Heaven, once whole and radiant, now prepared for its first battle. The armies assembled in dreadful beauty. Blades forged from divine light, wings that once shimmered with peace, now bristled with fury. The sound of the trumpets of Michael rolled like thunder through the firmament. Scripture says in Revelation 12:7, "There was war in heaven, Michael and his angels fought against the dragon." Yet this was not that battle, it was the one that came before, the one that made all others possible. The sight was beyond description, light striking light, holiness clashing with holiness, a storm of brilliance that tore through eternity itself. Gabriel pleaded for mercy, calling the rebels to remember the face of the Creator, but their hearts had hardened. They believed themselves righteous, blinded by their own conviction. Some angels wept as they raised their swords against their brothers. Even in war, heaven's pain was pure. It wasn't hate that drove them, but the unbearable certainty that they were right. And so, brother fought brother, light consumed light, until the very air of heaven cried out. For the first time, the music of the spheres fell silent. The stars dimmed, as if creation itself could not bear witness to the sight. Michael's voice thundered across the endless expanse, commanding the faithful to stand firm. He carried the authority of God, but his face was marked with sorrow. Every victory felt like loss. Every fallen angel was a piece of heaven breaking away. The war that began with pride was now fueled by grief, and the heavens bled radiance like fire raining through eternity. Then, in the heart of battle, something beyond comprehension happened. A light greater than all lights pierced the chaos. The very fabric of time seemed to bend as the voice of God moved through creation, not in anger, but in power. The fighting ceased. Wings froze mid-flight. The war stopped not because of surrender, but because every being in heaven felt the weight of divine command. Silence swept through the eternal realm, and in that stillness, judgment began. What would God do with those who had turned against his order? Then came the moment when God spoke, and all creation stood still. No wind, no sound, no movement, only the overwhelming presence of the Almighty filling every realm of existence. His words were not like thunder or fire, they were pure authority, carried through light itself. The war had ended, but heaven was broken. Angels who had once been radiant now knelt in shame, their glory dimmed by disobedience. Yet instead of wrath, there came something unexpected. Silence, followed by a decree no one had ever imagined. God commanded that the memory of this war be erased. The wounds in heaven were too deep to remain open. He would not allow the mark of division to poison eternity. Those who had fought were not cast into outer darkness, as Lucifer would be later. They were sealed away, removed from time and memory. The books of heaven were rewritten, the records of this conflict blotted out. It was as if it had never happened. Only the highest order of angels would retain a shadow of remembrance, just enough to ensure it would never happen again. In the hidden texts of Enoch and ancient scrolls, faint traces of this decree remain, references to watchers bound in silence, to wars of the sons of light that left no trace upon the earth. These are echoes of a forgotten truth, fragments left by prophets who glimpsed what the world was never meant to know. Humanity received the scriptures purified, the story cleansed of this heavenly scar, so that faith would not be burdened by the failures of the perfect. God's mercy took the form of forgetfulness. Forgetting, however, is not erasing. The universe still bears subtle scars of what once occurred. The balance between light and darkness, the tension between obedience and pride, these are remnants of that ancient war. Every battle between good and evil on earth mirrors a shadow of what happened beyond the veil. The angels who fought are gone, but the lesson of their rebellion lives on. Even in heaven, free will can lead to fracture if love is lost. So heaven was restored, radiant once more, its order renewed. Yet within the hearts of the archangels lingered a quiet ache. They had seen what few would ever understand. A glimpse of what happens when perfection questions itself. And though the decree of forgetfulness sealed the past, one question remained, echoing through eternity. If God chose to erase this story, what danger lies in remembering it again? Though heaven was healed, creation still whispered of what had been. Across the ages, prophets and seers caught glimpses of battles in the sky, visions of fire, thunder, and radiant beings locked in struggle. Enoch spoke of the watchers, who were bound for transgressing divine law. Daniel saw a host of heaven cast down to the ground. Even John, on the island of Patmos, witnessed another war in heaven and described it as if remembering an ancient wound reopening. The echoes of the forbidden war were not gone. They were buried within prophecy, disguised as symbols, waiting for those with discernment to see. Every era on earth has felt its vibration. The rise of kingdoms, the fall of empires, the constant battle between pride and obedience, all are reflections of that celestial conflict. The same tension that divided angels now moves within the hearts of men. Humanity carries a spark of the same freedom that once tore the heavens apart. And just like those radiant beings, people often mistake free will for sovereignty, forgetting that true power lies in submission to the divine. There are moments when the veil thins, when the unseen realm presses against ours, in storms, in silence, in dreams that shake the soul, fragments of that forgotten war resurface. Those who listen closely in prayer, those who walk humbly before God, can sense it. The struggle is not over, it has merely shifted from heaven to earth. The Apostle Paul wrote in Ephesians 6:12, For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. That battle is the living echo of the one God erased. And yet, through all this, mercy prevails. The same Creator who erased the memory of the angels' war extends forgiveness to humanity every day. What he chose to conceal in eternity, he reveals now through redemption. The forgotten war teaches us that God does not delight in destruction, but in restoration. Where angels fell, grace lifted mankind. What was once erased to protect heaven is now remembered to awaken earth. Still, the question lingers, why allow the echoes to remain? Perhaps because remembrance, when guided by wisdom, becomes warning. The shadows of that war remind every soul of what pride can destroy and what humility can heal. Heaven's silence was never meant to hide the truth forever. It was meant to teach that even forgotten battles can shape destiny. And now that the secret has been uncovered, the only question left is, what will humanity do with it? There are stories God allows to be forgotten, not because they are unworthy, but because they are too heavy for the human heart to carry. The forbidden war between angels was one of them, a wound too deep, a light too bright to remain uncovered. Yet even in his silence, God left a lesson, that pride can exist even in the purest light, and that mercy can still follow judgment. The erasure of that war was not a denial of truth, it was an act of divine compassion. Heaven learned that obedience is not submission to authority, but harmony with love. The angels who remained understood that even the smallest fracture in unity can echo through eternity. And mankind, created in God's image, was given the same choice, to live in surrender or to chase the illusion of independence. The battle we fight within our souls is the same that once split the skies. Each act of humility restores a piece of what heaven lost. So when the world feels divided, when light seems to battle against light, remember, this is not new. It is the ancient echo of a war long erased, still resonating in the hearts of those who forget who they truly are. The call of God is not to fight for greatness, but to return to the harmony we were created for. The greatest victory is not conquest. It is surrender. The heavens are silent about that first war, but silence is not absence. It is reverence. It is God's way of saying, learn from what I concealed. Unveil, the forgotten conflict between angels, stands as both a warning and a promise that no darkness can extinguish divine mercy, and that every fall can lead to renewal if the heart turns back to the light. So, as you close your eyes tonight, remember what the heavens chose to forget. The war is over, but its message remains. Stay humble, stay faithful, and guard your heart from the pride that once fractured eternity. If this story has awakened something in you, subscribe, leave your reflection below, and let this truth continue to speak within you. God bless you.